up at a specific hour to do stage work.
We have to do we have to do technical hours to help with the
Oh.
production. Like we need to walk lights so they can focus things. We need to help sometimes
Do setup
with costume,
and all
setup
that.
and breakdown. That's all part of
Yeah.
it. So usually it's not like, was your high note perfect today?
Yeah, that's what I was
You
gonna
got a B
ask.
plus
That
instead
would
of
be
an A.
so bad.
No, that's not.
That's
Like
so subjective.
we're all like trying to grow as singers and as artists.
Right,
It's
so they're
you
not
kinda-
grading you on,
No.
so like I'm doing that musical, I'm like studying a music piece. They're not gonna grade you on how well you executed singing the German, how
No.
more the
No, it's just
action.
I think
how
if
many
any-
hours.
It's like,
each
did you
semester
not
we
forget
need
to show up in that and that hour and
Yeah.
do this and this chore?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
tasks.
Yeah.
Sure.
And like each
They are chores. You're right.
each
Yeah,
year
I
it's a
did not
certain
though, no.
yeah, it's like a certain number of hours you have to put in towards an opera. Like I did makeup for the operas, so those were my like technical hours that they're going to be grading
Yeah.
on because I like showed up.
London
and
actually
that,
did
so-
was like designed the makeup for this. show.
Does, when you're applying to like you go to operas now and you sing from them, and you like apply, do they look at your GPA? Is it like that?
No, they don't look at your GPA. They just look at
Almost
like,
never. Perhaps if you were applying for a teaching job,
So
or you were
you're
trying to
more-
teach music, like in an academic setting, they might
Yeah.
care about how you did in
So
school.
you're more interested in the growth of yourself
Your
more
audition.
than the grade.
No, I mean when you're
Oh, yeah.
you might send a resume with your performance credits.
Right, they don't want to see you got like a 1.
No, they want to see where you went to school. They don't
Yeah.
care, and maybe if you were like, cum laude,
Top
or if
Okay.
you were like if you had an award, but like they don't really care about your GPA. They'll see that, they'll look at it for like 2 minutes for like 2 seconds and be like, oh, this is some stuff, and then they'll hear you sing and they'll be like, it's all about your audition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 99.9%.
They still do look over your stage
Yeah, absolutely.
experience. Like
Yeah,
lot of
that makes
places.
sense.
Yeah, a lot of places won't give you a job if you don't have already in your resume somewhere a place that paid you to
Yeah.
do a operatic role. So
Do
they
you-
don't take you.
You guys didn't get paid for Hansel and Gretel? It's just-
No, we're in school. So
Okay,
this is
that's what I
it's
was
just part
wondering
of
too.
No, we don't have to. Well, we're paying a lot of tuition
Yeah,
to
that's
do
what I
the
was
thing.
gonna ask about the tuition. How's the
But-
tuition? Especially that you guys are all out of state. Out of,
Yeah, CIM's private, so there's no in-state anything.
I
and
didn't know that either.
It's what is tuition, like 45
A semester or a year?
per year.
per year. Although next year they lowered it, so
They
now
like
it's only
reset
40,000.
tuition. Anyway, you also asked about the sets and who designed them.
Yes.
The professional. So there's the director who is faculty at the school, and then there's a crew of people, a production stage manager who kind of like runs and administers all the technical aspects of the production. There's a production designer and then a crew of people who handle lighting and other stage crew functions. And those people are all hired professionals who just work
Oh.
in theater and performing institutions in Cleveland. So the set's designed in conjunction with the director, but like by a professional designer and created by them too.
Okay, so you know how you said you did like research about like the opera that you're doing? Do you think it like reflects Germany, like during this era, properly?
Well, I don't know. It's a
Interesting.
folk. It's an interesting question. It's a folk song, a folk tale.
Yeah.
And the way we did it at CIM is like how Mr. Bamberger, our director, visioned it, pretty much. But he, for sure, I can tell you that a lot of the stuff that he made us do are very, very, very much influenced by some big productions in the 80s, big productions in the 60s also.
Sure.
Like there's a bunch of big productions that were very, very famous, even televisionized internationally, and in the original language of German, with subtitles. And of course, also when I did it back in Israel, my teacher was pretty much very, very influenced by those big productions. So a lot of opera in general opera productions. You have big institutions like the Met and big opera houses in Europe that do this big production, and then you have schools and a lot of people being very influenced by it and making their small version of it. So that's how you
All
a
artists.
tradition starts.
Yeah, pull ideas from.
There's a big difference between having like a traditional setting of an opera,
Yeah.
where you would have like 17th century, like a castle and those kinds of costumes, and then to the complete opposite, like where it's like more of a modern staging,
Yeah.
and it's like set in
Yeah,
a casino
you'll
and you're
see-
like on a beach or something,
Very,
and for the
very
same opera.
somewhat controversially in the news of the opera world, not on like the Daily News, but this past season at the Paris Opera, which is like one of the world's biggest opera houses, they did La Bohème, which is an opera set in Paris in the mid 19th century, but they did it in space, and a lot of people were like, "This is cool," and a lot more people were like, "This is terrible," and
Stupid, yeah.
"Don't put this in space."
Yeah.
No, I loved it, but see, even here,
No,
like,
no. I'm just saying, like, they thought it was stupid.
yeah,
I think it's great.
Cool,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I thought we'd be on the same
I
page.
think it's ridiculous.
But I mean, whether it's representative of Germany at the time it was written, I mean, it's a folk tale, and I'm not so familiar with like how it was originally staged, what the design was like, when they were trying to set it.
I believe when they originally did this, the whole reason there's like no crumbs in Hansel and Gretel, like that's like a big thing from the fairy tale.
Yes,
like the
I
crumbs.
asked about
Yeah, it's not a thing in the opera, and the reason was, I believe, is that when he did it, he first sort of premiered it at his house, and his wife didn't want crumbs all over their house, so the crumbs were gone, so they're not in
Story-
the opera. Yeah.
Stories like that. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's like. I was just gonna say, as being representative at this time, one thing that made me think of was at the end of Hansel and Gretel, the very quick conclusion, like, oh, like the kids are safe and the witch is dead and we will eat this cookie, and the father and mother find the kids and everyone's happy,
Yeah.
and the last words of the opera are like, Gott Herr der Hand uns reicht. Which is just like the hand of our Lord God,
Saves us.
yeah,
pretty
will
much.
like has saved us or saves us, present tense. Which just that being in the libretto indicates that Germany at that moment was a universally Christian and religious place. That seems representative of its time, and. Hansel and Gretel is an opera that it works really well for both like young people, for kids and adults. Like it's really interesting. The music's great, but like the story, kids kind of know the story of Hansel and Gretel, and
It's accessible.
It's an accessible opera in a way that some others aren't. And because of that, in the United States, it's frequently performed in an English translation. Many operas are not frequently performed in a translation, usually in the original language, but this one is. And a lot of times that the words at the end there are not religious in nature in English translation. In the
I didn't know
productions
that.
I've seen, yeah.
What's your favorite songs as well? From the
Yeah,
From the
what's
songs.
a
We
good-
like our own
what's a good
songs.
one?
Yeah.
What's a good one for me to like pick?
If I were you, I would have chosen one of the. Well, you can choose the aria of the witch, and you can also choose one of the duets of Hansel and Gretel. Oh, and sorry, you can choose also.
No, I wouldn't
But,
really
like-
choose the
Nobody
father's
chooses the
song.
father.
If I were you, I would have
Scott
but also I'm a sister, I would have probably chosen one of the duets of Hansel and Gretel because it's just like a very folky child song.
There's actually a really famous one that Hansel and Gretel sing. I think it's like the lullaby or something.
the-
And there
Oh,
is
prayer.
the prayer.
I think
Okay, I'm
so.
gonna
of prayer.
There's
Yeah.
probably the prayer is probably the most like
Yeah.
studied
Okay.
part of
Oh,
music
yeah.
from that.
a lot of
So
material on that.
the Witch's music is also
That's
just
good
like
to know.
uber fun.
Yep.
though.
Yeah, The Witch is a lot of fun. I would say her aria is pretty recognizable as well. As far as studying it, I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of substance to her aria. It's just kind of like, this is my life as a witch. But other than that, I mean, the opening duet between Hansel and Gretel is a lot of fun. Like they're they're being children, they're playing around, so that's kind of
Nice
good
to listen
as well.
to.
Yeah.
singers
Yeah.
running around the stage and try to sing over
Dancing
it.
and being silly. So.
But yeah, actually, in the witch opera, if you want to look more over the orchestra side, then you can find lots of stuff because he's really playing with the different instruments, like different ways to depict and like witchy kind of
The witch's
black magic.
The witch's music is definitely the most interesting, I would say, and
Orchestrally colorful.
yes.
Yeah.
He's doing more interesting things with the sound of the orchestra at that moment.
Great, Tim.
I
Yeah.
want to know if we have time for one more question, because I do have one question.
I think so.
When's the period of
Okay. I wanted to know if any of you know any of the history behind the costumes or why they're made the way they are.
Our specific costumes?
Like Hansel and Brennan.
Well,
So I think with costumes are tricky. They're going to be different in a lot of different productions, and part of the decision about how to make costumes is something that the director, who's ultimately in charge of the production, the artistic part of the production, and the costume designer work together to decide, and they create a concept. So the director will say, like, I want to do this traditionally. I want the costumes to come from like an 1860s German kind of style, and then they will like draft some sketches of what they think, and then they'll kind of go back and forth and be like, I like this, but like the tail's too long. Can you just like shorten it up a little? And they kind of decide on what it's going to be, but because operas are frequently staged at different times, right? Like La Boheme space costumes are going to be different from La Boheme 1850 costumes, and so. But I know the costume designers, and I'm definitely not a costume designer, but I know a lot of costume designers. There are resource books of costumes, so you can say like I'm looking for like German style costumes from the 19th century. So there's probably like a big book, and then you say like, okay, I'm looking for a peasant, and I'm looking for 1860. And so then you flip to that page, and you can kind of see like different styles, and this is like historically informed, like what people were wearing at that time. And so I think like the decision
When you
making.
say costume, you mean like the clothes real people were wearing, or
Yeah.
the clothes people wore on the stage?
I think the clothes that real people were wearing.
Historically accurate.
Yeah,
Clothing
and
of the time.
right.
And you take that and adapt
And
it
you
into
take
the
that and
opera.
adapt it into whatever's going to be most functional for a character to wear on stage. But I think designers generally, and maybe this wasn't the case 100 years ago, but they generally try to inform their artistic design for the stage based on what is like historically accurate from a design perspective.
And I would say in our particular production that we were pretty traditional with the way we did our costumes, like very recognizable. The fact that like Hansel sort of wore sort of a Lederhosen-esque, and Gretel was sort of she had the little dress with the bloomers. I mean,
And the father was wearing tights. Like this is a thing
like
that-
everybody was pretty traditional. I would say the witch was kind of like an outlier.
The witch is a witch kind of
The witch was-
reality,
Yeah,
right?
the witch was very crazy looking, but I mean, still had like the witch hat, so everything was recognizable as far as what you would see on a stage. And when I was given like an idea of what they wanted to do for makeup, they basically told me they wanted to do like 40s children's books illustrations. So I think it was all kind of like thrown together from a lot of different period influences, but I would say as far as like this production in particular, it was still like recognizable, accessible. Like when you think of German outfits, you're gonna think of like Lederhosen and dirndls and stuff like that. So I think that had an influence on it.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bamberger can talk more about when he comes in to talk to you all about like his specific vision and how where he got his influence.
He'll have a lot to say about design and influence.
Yeah, it's not like you can't say it was like historically accurate, but for sure it was very traditional.
Based in
Traditional.
historical accuracy, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to know if you guys have pictures of yourselves with your costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I do.
London
I
does.
took a lot of pictures of myself because I had to do the witch's makeup, so.
I was
So
gonna
there's-
say there's definitely selfies.
Yeah.
There
for sure.
are
If you all want, you can send them to me. and I
production
can give them to
photos
you all.
I think were taken.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I bet Mr. Bamberger could
Sure. Yeah.
provide
there
that.
I mean, I just have like a
Yeah.
close up of my face.
Yeah, so when
photographer.
like designers
Oh my God.
You can just pass it.
Before and after.
So designers for their portfolios, whether they do costumes or sets or anything like that, in order to represent the work they've done to future employers and for future reference,
I know.
someone at a dress rehearsal will take photos of the set and of costumes and things like that. And I'm sure that happened for this production. And I bet Mr. Bamberger could provide access to those photos for
Yeah,
your
for sure.
work.
Would it be out of line to ask for, if we ask for the recordings of the witch and of the, because I know that they usually
Yeah.
take the recordings.
They do record
They
it.
do. They do actually. I've sent out live stream. Like they do live streams and they record it all, and they're on Facebook. I've sent them
Yeah.
to like the full recordings
Oh, yeah.
of our
Oh, the live
shows.
streams
The live
are on
streams
On
are
Facebook,
available
yeah.
on Facebook.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't find, because they're not running on the website, it's on the CIM website.
Well, I can message you the links that I sent to my family, and you can.
Sure.
And at some point later on, it will be in the same library in a better quality, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
live
but
stream
their
is
work's done
really
in about,
good.
just do it, like a month.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can send the
Indeed.
links.
Still
So
useful.
whichever production you think is the best of us.
We would-
Wednesday.
both.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
When?
Yeah,
One of each.
no, no,
I'm
yeah,
like, which
it's-
night of mine? I was like, Wednesday.
Well, is that
I have to go to my 12:30,
Yeah.
11:30
Oh.
class.